Greetings, my fellow heterosexuals. Today I will be continuing with my reboot of my monster romance webtoon, Coming to the Lavender. The original comic from 2015 is still available to read on Webtoons, and I will leave a link in the description. When I do reboot the comic officially next year, I will be just erasing the original pages and then replacing them with the new comic pages, just so that my followers don't have to worry about trying to find the comic again. So, and as you can see here, I'm copy and pasting the panel from the previous page onto this first one. I'm doing this for a couple reasons. Like most webcomic artists, I'm on a shoestring budget and suffer from chronic wrist pain. So if there's a way that I can be a filthy little cheater, I'm going to take it. I have been working on this comic for 5 years and rebooting it. I'm a little worried about my chances of having this done before I die, so we're gonna take any shortcuts we can. As I've mentioned in previous videos, Coming to the Lavender, the story in this current iteration was originally 2 separate novels. The first was called Price Tag, which follows the story beats of Aaron getting kidnapped and tortured by Douche Nugget and pals. Unfortunately, there were no sexy bug women in Price Tag, so instead of almost immediately being rescued by Miffany, Aaron has to wait 2 years for a tornado to break him free in Price Tag. There was another separate novel that was also called Coming to the Lavender, and it was about a bisexual cross-dressing painter named Feather befriending a shape-shifting dragon. Miffany was a character in the old Coming to the Lavender, but only as a very minor character who would flirt with the humans. And she had a special power where every time she flirted with humans, they would get incredibly high because of how into them she was, to the point where she would have to put a lid on her flirting in order to let the humans be in peace. So, and all of these elements just got dumped into this kind of melding pot with no real thought or pre-planning as to how they would all fit together as one cohesive story. Of course, Miffany becoming a part of Coming to the Lavender in this current iteration was basically me writing a fan fiction of Miffany coming into the Price Tag story and rescuing Aaron. And even though it was just kind of, mashing toys together, over the years, I do have a skeleton of the plot, and I do know definitively how the story will end, and I have most of the major story beats together. But I still want to reboot the comic because in the older pages, I see a lot of spots where I could have gotten to said story beats more effectively, and I could have added more foreshadowing or shown more of the character's personality sooner. This section of the comic that I'm working on, where Miffany actually does in fact save the day, is an example. So how it went in the original 2015 comic, the one that's still up on Webtoons, Douche Nugget and pals start doing their thing and torturing Aaron, and then out of nowhere, we have a giant sexy bug woman with no explanation. One might ask, does someone as wonderful and marvelous as Miffany need an explanation? Probably not. But What I want to do in this new iteration and how I want to change the scene is to have Douche Nugget offhandedly mention to Aaron his own personal history with black magic. I can't really show you anything visually because it's just a dialogue element and this is just the sketch I'm working on, but the purpose of that would be to show the audience earlier on that this is a universe with magic in it, rather than Douche Nugget and his pals being a bunch of crazy white people who just like to kidnap people for fun. I mean, Douche Nugget does find it fun, but he's doing this professionally for an actual purpose. He gets paid for this. But so it was to show the audience that there will be magic earlier on before we are blessed with Miffany's presence, while also giving a bit of backstory to a major player. But, that's just kind of a sort of thing that I try to think of, and I think is important to think of when you're developing a webcomic is, it's important to think about the world building, think about the characters, and when you have any kind of story, but especially in fantasy where you're introducing the rules, it's kind of important to not only ground the audience in the sort of world that they're in, to let them understand what the rules are and what they can expect, but it's also important to kind of help get you introduced to the characters and, if bad things are going to happen to them, make you to try to understand why you should care. Aaron in the old comic was very bland and didn't have much of a personality, didn't really have much of a backstory, but I feel like in this current iteration, I'm going to try to make him be less of just a cipher. One of my favorite things in storytelling is when an author uses color to tell a story. My favorite example of this being used in a story is this anime called Revolutionary Girl Utena. The main character has pink hair. And of course, a lot of anime characters have pink hair because that's just how it is. Everyone's got funky colored hair. But the cool thing about that show was how it used colors to tell you about her character. So in the show, red is a power color, typically worn by characters who either are powerful or are power hungry. Utena is athletic and a powerful sword fighter and is able to defeat several skilled sword fighters while being completely in over her head. White in the show was associated with purity and childhood innocence. Utena was one of the most honorable people on the show and wore her heart on her sleeve without really being concerned with what was politic to say. And she would say you were being a jerk and needed to apologize for your behavior, or just to tell you what was annoying or weird to her. And so the fact that her having pink hair showed that she had a combination of the pure ideals and a good heart and was well-intentioned, while also combined with her strength. I love storytelling like this, and I try to think about using color in my own stories. Like, for example, Aaron, as a result of getting kidnapped and tortured, he doesn't really just walk that off. He suffers from PTSD for the rest of the comic. And I wanted to actually show his flashbacks, or, show visually when he's being triggered. And He gets kidnapped at night in a parking lot. And one cool thing that I thought I could do is anytime that something triggers him, rather than show it all in bright red or in black and white or, something kind of rote like that, I thought instead I could have it bathed in that sulfur yellow street light that some cheap parking lots have. But it's not just enough to think about how you're going to show certain moods. It's also a really good idea to think about, what colors and what they say about your characters when you are designing them. That way you're able to make characters like a boyfriend or girlfriend or a villain and his henchmen look like they are a team, they fit in the world, and it also is good to think about color in order to see what you're saying about these characters to the audience. I didn't do any of that when I was making Coming to the Lavender. Miffy, Aaron, our heroes, and our villains, Douche Nugget and Halevi, were all made randomly and separately from the span of 2012 to 2014 with, they weren't even meant to be, working together. So I didn't really think about how they would look together in a lineup. But what's funny is that even though I didn't plan them all together, I don't know if it's just subconscious or serendipity, but actually when I lined them up together, even though Miffy and Aaron and Douche Nugget and Halevi were all made completely separate, when I put them together and put them in a lineup, they still look like they're meant to go together, and the villains kind of play a foil to our heroes, and it looks like I did it intentionally, even though it was just kind of random. So, for example, let's start with our heroes. So Aaron, he's a very round character, and what I mean by that is he has a lot of round elements in his design. He's got big, round, kind of chubby cheeks. He's kind of baby face. He's got these big, round anime eyes. And even the wrinkles in his hoodie have these smooth, organic lines. His color scheme is red, blue, and brown with a little bit of white because of his sneakers. And he's got a very warm color scheme, a very warm design, and he looks very soft, approachable, and, just a lot of organic lines. And then Miffy, and while she might look a little bit intimidating, she still looks, when compared to the villains, she still looks, a lot more inviting than one would normally expect an 8-foot-tall bug monster to look. She has a very round design. Her head is very round. And, of course, her big, juicy carapace is also very round. Her eyes are kind of these enlarged almond shapes with lots of curving lines, and even her teeth are very wide and sort of curved out. It's almost like, a scalloped edge, but with points at the end. And her teeth especially look a lot rounder to Halevi's needle-like teeth she is the main villain's henchman, basically. I haven't shown Halevi yet, and in the original comic, she was only on one page, I think. But she will play a big part in the story proper. She kind of acts as a shadow to Mythony, in that, like Mythony, she also just stumbled upon this random, short human dude who she just decided to help for her own reasons. But we'll get into that more. There's actually a lot of similarities, not only in the actual story, but also in Mythony, in the character creation when I was making both Halevi and Mythony. So, like Mythony, Halevi was made to experiment with an art technique. Mythony I just made as a random character while practicing digital art. And Halevi was made to practice a tutorial for drawing curly hair. Halevi was also not a part of Price Tag or even Lavender. But back when Douche Nugget was just getting too creepy for me to write, it was really fun to think about Halevi showing up to ruin Douche Nugget's day and generally making his life harder. I wrote fan fiction of Mythony rescuing Aaron. I made fan fiction and fan OCs of my own comic. How up my own ass am I? I mean, it is a delightful ass, and I love my characters, so I'm not going to complain or apologize. Anyway, point being, I ended up liking Halevi so much that I decided to make her canon. Douche Nugget did not approve that both Mythony and Halevi were made canon, but he was outvoted in the meeting, and then afterwards Halevi shoved him in a locker for being a nerd. Anyway, back to the design elements. When I was designing Halevi's character sheet, and when I put her up next to Douche Nugget on a lineup, she is meant to be she's meant to be the bodyguard of Douche Nugget. And what's cool is that even though I made them completely separately, they still look like they're on the same team. So Douche Nugget has a lot of sharp edges with some geometric shapes. His hat is basically made up of squares and rectangles, and then his chin and chest are triangles. He's very blocky, sharp, and has a lot of hard, harsh edges, especially compared to the more organic, smooth lines in Aaron's design. Douche Nugget's color scheme is black, white, and yellow. His skin has kind of a yellow tint to it to make him look more sallow and desaturated. Because basically he's meant to kind of look like a wax dummy or like he's been embalmed, kind of, bloodless and desaturated. Halevi's color scheme is black, white, and green, which is, a shade of yellow. She has much smaller, sharper teeth than Mythony, and her skirt is ripped and jagged, giving her a lot of pointy edges that make her look a lot more harmonious with Douche Nugget's design. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over with in this video. So once again, the original 2015 comic is still available to read. If you could subscribe it and share it, that would be a big help. Please follow me on Instagram and Twitter, where I make a lot of updates about the comic, and I will keep you posted. And so please subscribe and look out for the next video. Have a nice day.